From Central.
Let's make him speak.
Okay. I'm going to call to order this work session of the Forest Grove City Council. And the topic is on urban reserve. I put my agenda away.
A lot of noise just for 1 second, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and make the noise because I can't flip it open. Okay. Urban Reserve Planning Area, and I have staff Daniel Reardon, Senior Planner, and Community Development Director Brian Poole. Just a reminder to everyone that during work sessions, no public comment will be taken, and the council will take no formal action. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council, Dan Reardon, Senior Planner with the Planning Division. We started the discussion at your last council meeting, but we'll just kind of recap what was presented at the last meeting and then transition into the new information. We have a pretty big agenda, so hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly. Next slide, please. So tonight's work session is really to provide an opportunity for City Council to learn about and discuss the David Hill Urban Reserve Planning Area. And staff would really like to hear Council's thoughts about next steps and how to proceed with the David Hill Urban Reserve Area in terms of long-range planning. This particular topic touches on a couple of, one City Council goal objective and several vision statement action items. Specifically, this work session deals with 2025 City Council goal objective 1.1 to initiate policy discussions on an urban reserve growth strategy. Excellent. And in terms of the Vision 2040 plan, this topic addresses the 2040 Community Growth Goal Statement regarding a well-connected, safe, environmentally sustainable community with diverse, affordable housing, resilient green infrastructure, efficient mobility options, and strong public safety, creating a vibrant, accessible, and climate-conscious community for all. And this work session also deals with the 2040 outcome around affordable housing options. Next slide, please. And then key action items that are addressed by this topic include updating the city's comprehensive plan, keeping all long-term infrastructure plans up to date, increasing industrial business development, and increasing the volume and diversity of commercial business development. Next slide. So at the last City Council meeting, we talked a little bit about what is an urban growth boundary, and the Oregon Revised Statutes provide a definition for an urban growth boundary, but in plain language, an urban growth boundary is simply a line identified on a map that separates urban land from rural areas that could be urbanized. Next slide, please. So this map shows the city boundary in relation to the urban growth boundary. The orange larger area is the urban growth boundary around the city's planning area, and the red line is the current city limit boundary. Next slide, please. So what is an urban reserve, which is the topic of this work session this evening? An urban reserve is established by state law and adopted for Metro for areas adjacent to the Portland urban growth boundary. And an urban reserve is essentially land outside an urban growth boundary intended for future expansion over a long-term period. Urban growth boundaries are generally designed to accommodate land needs for a 20-year planning horizon. So the idea is the 20-year land needs will be met within the urban growth boundary. The urban reserve takes it the next step. It's to identify urban development needs for a 20 to 50-year period, unless there's insufficient capacity in the urban growth boundary and the urban growth boundary needs to be expanded. If the urban growth boundary does need to be expanded, it would be expanded into one of the urban reserve areas around the Portland UGB. I have a map later in the presentation to show where those areas are. Next slide, please. So the city's urban reserve area, the David Hill Urban Reserve Area, is shown by the yellow boundary. It's adjacent to the Forest Scale Heights neighborhood in northwest Forest Grove. This slide shows the urban reserve boundary, the urban growth boundary, and the city limit line. So the urban reserve area is the yellow boundary, urban growth boundary is the orange line, and the city limit line, as it currently is the red line on the map. Next slide, please. So there's been a lot of work over the last 20 years or so related to long-range planning in terms of how the city might grow over the 20 to 50-year time horizon. It started back in 2006 with what was called the Great Communities Planning Process, and then there were several other initiatives. The Washington County Urbanization Forum in 2009, which stipulated that future urban areas must be within a city. They can't be unincorporated areas. So no more Aloas, no more Bethany. That was really the result of the Washington County Urbanization Forum. And then this slide shows some other initiatives that were completed, including the West Side Refinement Plan in 2017, which looked at how the area within the urban growth boundary that is yet to develop, how that should grow and develop, as well as looked at the urban reserve area. And that was back in 2018. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the Great Communities land use concept. And the reason why I wanted to show this is it showed kind of an efficient land use pattern where the city would, both Forest Grove and Cornelius, would grow northward across Council Creek. It would allow for a variety of land uses, commercial shown on red on the map, higher density development in the orange and lower density development in the red, and employment and industrial areas in the gray area on the map. And this is an efficient land use pattern because it's more concentric, and so it's easier to serve. The issue with this concept is that it shows growth going into high-value farmland, and that was really a consideration that the legislature addressed when looking at the urban reserve areas, and that's the principal reason why we ended up with the David Hill Urban Reserve Area instead of going further north of David Hill Road all the way up to Purdon Road because of that impact to high-value farm. Next slide, please. After the urban reserve areas were designated back in 2014, there was a group of Portland State University graduate students in the Masters of Urban and Regional Planning program that took a look at the area and came up with some concepts for how the area could grow. This was the preferred land use concept, Concept Plan D, and it shows that development would largely be concentrated adjacent to David Hill Road, which is the east-west road on the map, with some fairly high-density development, as high as 30 units per acre, which could be somewhat challenging to achieve in an area that is steeply sloped and also bisected. They're not contiguous areas because of the topography, and I'll show you that later in the presentation. But really the takeaway from this slide is the amount of land that would be either open space or natural areas that would largely be off limits for development, which is a large portion of the David Hill Urban Reserve Area. Overall, the David Hill Urban Reserve Area is about 330 acres, but the net developable area is about 170 acres, so about 40% of the overall area. The upside of including the natural areas in the urban reserve area and ultimately bringing it into the city limits is that there are greater protections within cities for natural areas than you would see just out in the county in the unincorporated areas. We have tighter controls in our development code with respect to how natural areas are protected. So that's one reason for adding that area into the urban reserve. Next slide, please. So why the David Hill Urban Reserve Planning Area? And this is basically where we left off at your last city council meeting. So this is the start of the new information. I want to point out that the David Hill Urban Reserve Planning Area was part of an initial proposal that included the David Hill area, the Purdon Road area, which is north of David Hill Road, all the way up to Purdon Road. The area that's in the urban growth boundary now is Council Creek, which is kind of halfway between David Hill Road and Purdon Road. So not all of that area was brought into the urban growth boundary. But that area, large area, was looked at, as well as the area on the south end of town, the Elm Street area, which was also brought into the urban growth boundary by the legislature through the Grand Bargain back in 2014. This land use concept also is more concentric, and so it represents a more efficient development pattern. And it also supported a variety of proposed land uses, including residential in the David Hill area, a mixed-use commercial residential area in the Purdon Road area, and industrial in the Elm Street area. Some of those opportunities have gone by the wayside with the smaller Purdon Road area. when the Purdon Road area was actually looked at as for urban reserve, the area on the far north end, on the yellow line, I'll try to point to it here. I don't know if you can see that. It's the far north yellow line. The land adjacent to Purdon Road was identified for employment uses, principally industrial. And the area south of Council Creek was for residential. When the legislature drew the boundary of Council Creek instead of Purdon Road, it basically did away with that opportunity for industrial uses, which was unfortunate. And again, this combined area provided an opportunity for efficient public service delivery. And as I mentioned before, including the David Hill area allows for protection of natural resources after land is annexed into the city. So that's why the David Hill Urban Reserve Planning Area was identified. Next slide, please. This, again, is the map just to show the location of the David Hill Urban Reserve Area. We can go on. So getting into the urban reserve planning area characteristics, this map shows that it is fairly parcelized. There are 23 individual tax lots in this area. About half of the tax lots are larger than 10 acres, which is a fairly good size for subdivision development, but being so parcelized, it makes it difficult to do a comprehensive sort of master plan development for the area. In addition, 18 of the 23 parcels have some fairly significant improvements on them. The median value for improvements within the urban reserve area exceeds $345,000. So it's not like all of this area is just completely vacant and without any improvements. There are some homes and other improvements in the area that potentially complicate development for it. Next slide, please. Topography is a real consideration. You can see on this slide that there are significant areas that are greater than 25% slope. Largely, that's off limits to development because of the steepness. There are also significant areas that are greater than 10% slope. Those areas have some development potential, but are challenging. Especially with respect to putting in streets and other infrastructure, sanitary sewer lines in particular. But the one thing I want to point out on this slide is that there are pockets of areas that could be developed, but they're not adjacent. They're isolated and separated, which complicates development potential, and that's shown in the lighter areas in the blue shaded area. Next slide, please. So the urban wildland interface is another consideration. Given the steep topography and the forested area. The current city's comprehensive plan has some policies for promoting development standards, addressing the urban wildland interface and mitigating for wildfire. But our development code currently has nothing really with respect to fire-wise development, having separation areas between the vegetated area and homes, or anything guiding specific construction materials to mitigate potential wildfire loss. So that's another consideration with this area. Next slide, please. Transportation is largely, there's really no real transportation network in this area other than David Hill Road, which bisects the urban reserve area, and Gales Creek Road on the south. There's really no internal transportation network. There is Northwest Creekwood Place, which is a private road similar to Plum Hill Lane off of Thatcher Road that serves some of the homes there. But when Metro evaluated the David Hill Urban Reserve Area as part of the 2024 Urban Growth Report, leading to bringing some of the Sherwood Urban Reserve Area into the urban growth boundary, they rated the transportation network in this area as low, requiring significant investments. And another consideration with respect to transportation is this area is not within the TriMet service boundary, and TriMet really has no interest in serving this area. And it's uncertain whether or not GroveLink would have sufficient resources to provide transit service to this area. So there's some transportation considerations with respect to this area. Utilities also largely devoid. There are utilities sort of adjacent to the urban reserve area in the Forest Scale neighborhood. There's a water line on David Hill Road. There's a water line that connects to the city water reservoir, which is in the urban reserve area. But there's really no utilities except for power in this area, and it's uncertain whether or not the utility could reasonably be extended into the urban reserve area without significant public investment because of the topography and natural resources. Next slide, please. So switching gears into the urban reserve planning, doing a concept plan for the urban reserve area. There's some requirements under the Metro Code with respect to how local jurisdictions must develop concept plans. Metro adopted a policy requiring that concept plans be done for adding urban reserve areas into the urban growth boundary, although that's not a state requirement, but it is a Metro policy. But the city is responsible for developing a concept plan in consultation with the county and in coordination with Metro and the appropriate service districts. So the one thing I want to point out here is it's not just a city decision or a city action with respect to adopting a concept plan. It requires consultation with the county and coordination with Metro and all of the appropriate service districts. The process is governed by Title 11 of the Metro Urban Growth Management Functional Plan and the Urban Planning Area Agreement between the county and the city. Next slide, please. So the Title 11 of the Metro Urban Growth Management Functional Plan requires that they have specific factors that are considered for concept planning. One, that the land use concept promotes efficient urbanization, that the area become or contribute to mixed-use, walkable, transit-friendly communities, and that the area supports the construction of all types of needed housing, including housing across the entire price spectrum. And now that the state has housing production targets for cities across the entire range of housing types, including those for households with 0 to 30% income, all the way up to high-end market rate, that needs to be considered as part of developing a concept plan, how the city would achieve those state housing targets. Next slide, please. So candidate areas proposed for urban reserve areas proposed for addition to the urban growth boundary are considered by Metro generally on a 6-year cycle. Metro completed the last cycle in 2024, and through the last cycle, Metro added about 1,200 acres of urban reserve adjacent to the city of Sherwood, which is currently being appealed and being considered by the State Land Conservation and Development Commission. State law does allow for mid-cycle amendments for land exchanges and modest expansions to the urban growth boundary. That does happen from time to time, but that's usually small areas, 10 to 20 acres, as an example, rather than 300 or 1,200 acres. Next slide, please. So the Metro Urban Growth Management Functional Plan requires that the county and city work together with Metro to prepare the concept plan, and that the area subject to the concept plan and date for completion will be jointly determined by Metro, the county, and the city. So again, it's just not a city action. It involves the other entities as well. Next slide, please. So a concept plan must again achieve cost-effective and efficient provision of public facilities, a development pattern supportive of non-auto vehicle travel, pedestrian and bicycle travel specifically, a range of housing types, a well-connected system of streets, bikeways, parks, recreation trails, protection of natural features and avoidance or minimization of adverse effects on farm and forest practices on nearby rural lands. What this means is that the land use concept plan should try to minimize potential impact on agricultural activities, principally farming, but forestry as well. Next slide, please. So a concept plan must show specific locations for different land uses, residential, commercial, industrial, general locations for needed utilities, propose methods for funding the public utilities, preliminary strategies to support the plan outcomes, indicate locations for water quality and habitat conservation resource areas, and be coordinated with the school district. And so really the point of all of this is that there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of preparing a concept. Next slide, please. So the urban planning area agreement between the city and the county also governs how the urban reserve area is planned. It includes an agreement between the city and county regarding expectations for road funding and jurisdictional transfer. Gales Creek Road is under county jurisdiction, and David Hill Road through the urban reserve area is under county jurisdiction. So there'll be discussions about transfer of those facilities to the city at some point as the area urbanizes. The urban planning area agreement also requires an agreement that identifies the city as the likely provider of urban services, except for those provided by a service district like Clean Water Services. And the urban planning area agreement also requires acknowledgement of the concept plan by the county. So the county must basically concur with the land use pact. And then after the adoption and acknowledgement of the concept plan, it would be designated as part of the city's official planning. Next. So this slide is intended just to show some of the other urban reserve areas adjacent to the Portland UGB. It also identifies where the rural reserves are. There are some undesignated areas. There's one immediately south of Forest Grove and Cornelius. It's mostly south of Cornelius, south of the floodplain area, the Gales Creek floodplain area. Once 75% of the existing urban reserve areas added to the urban growth boundary, consideration could be given to adding undesignated areas, but we're still a ways out from that. It's 50% of the existing urban reserve area has been added to the urban growth boundary, principally adjacent to Tiger and King City, along Roy Rogers Road. Next slide, please. There's been quite a bit of recent legislation related to the urban reserves, and in the interest of time, I won't go into this in any detail. You have in your packet, you can refer to it. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So, potential next steps, and this is really where staff would like to hear from the council about your perceptions moving forward, next steps for the urban reserve area. We have 5 different potential next steps. One is to proceed with an initial feasibility analysis to determine the practicality of providing cost-effective public services in a range of housing types in this area. It wouldn't be a full-blown concept plan. It would be kind of the next step beyond what was done in the West Side Refinement Plan to look at, can we really meet those outcomes in the Metro Code for how an urban reserve area should develop? Is it even feasible? Number 2 is to apply for funding from Metro to prepare a formal concept plan for the entire urban reserve planning area. Number 3 is applying to do a concept plan for just a portion of the urban reserve planning area. It could be that area immediately adjacent to David Hill Road, consistent with what the Portland State University students came up with for a concept, where it's just the area that really has some development potential. It's not the entire area. Number 4 is deferring moving forward with doing an urban reserve concept plan until after the city's required housing capacity analysis and housing production strategy are completed. And this is important because the housing capacity analysis will look at the city's buildable land inventory, how much land is available for development, how much land has development, is truly developable, has development potential, and also looks at allocating the state housing production targets and looking at our capacity and whether we can achieve those targets. If those targets cannot be achieved, there are a couple of things that could happen. One is that the city has to adopt land use efficiency measures to increase the capacity within the urban growth boundary. If that's not possible, then the urban reserve areas could be looked at for potential addition. And then the housing production strategy is intended to provide incentives for producing the housing to meet our targets. And so really the results of both the HCA and the housing production strategy help to inform how things should progress in the urban reserve area. And then number 5 is working with neighboring cities, the county and metro, on possible reserve area legislation to address urban reserve limitations, principally with our urban reserve area where there are some real challenges. So those are the potential next steps. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. I don't know if, Brian, you have anything you'd like to add? Now we'll turn it over to council.
Nothing to add. I mean, I think in generally speaking, 2014 was a different time, when all this happened. We weren't talking about affordable housing the way we are now. We weren't talking about sort of these housing capacity issues and everything. Prices of housing about a third of what they are now. This is a different conversation. Even just at the Housing Land Advocates Forum, we had, talking about how big the fire insurance conversation is right now, and how many people are not getting dropped and how hard it is to get fire insurance. And this area falls right in that sort of vein. And that is not by any means to kind of sway you all with your decision making, but just to sort of set the table for, why we thought this was important to get in front of you, to talk about proactively, and kind of determine next steps before we really kind of dive into a whole planning process.
Counselor Faulkner.
Can I ask a question about, it's pretty obvious why the capacity analysis and production strategy would inform the other, but I also wonder if there's, for like that number one, the initial feasibility, I wonder if that might actually even inform some of that process, because I think, it sort of has just always sort of been there, that land has always kind of been designated as like, eventually that's probably where we'll grow. But like you said, 2014 was a very different time. We weren't talking about wildfires nearly as much. We weren't talking, price of housing is significantly higher. There's just a lot of reasons why I think like maybe just not really thinking about that as developable could actually inform those analyses too. And so I'm kind of thinking about those things a little bit more parallel than the way they're laid out here. Because I think if you sort of do that initial feasibility study and you recognize that like we really don't get a whole lot out of that, we don't get affordability. It's really going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to meet those goals. Then maybe we think about our plan for using existing land that a little bit more efficiently. So can you?
I think as we've talked on staff, I think that this number one, really kind of makes a lot of sense, right? No matter what, if you're having this conversation about housing capacity analysis and everything and sort of next steps, number one's only going to feed into data and have more information, make that a richer conversation as we move forward through these processes. So we've had that conversation on staff, and I think that makes a lot of sense to kind of do this, number one. But Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I think that's kind of where we are on the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. We know there are some challenges. Number one would allow us to put some numbers and have some tangible information to support our perceptions. Number four is really intended to show that, everything that needs to be done for an urban reserve concept plan, a full-blown concept plan, is a very heavy lift, and there is a relationship between the housing capacity analysis and the housing production strategy, but that does not mean that we can't proceed with doing some initial analysis to get the information.
Any other question?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead,
can
Council
have a
President.
Yes, so I agree that having that feasibility analysis is, would be kind of like a first thing to do. However, I do have a question about the HCA will not be ready until 2027, right? By the end of 2027?
That's our deadline.
That's our deadline.
That's 2028, maybe. All right. How about the feasibility analysis? How long would that take for that section?
It really depends on the scope of work that we're asking for, and if it's very well defined, it can be done relatively fast. The contracting piece of things is probably one aspect that would take the longest, but once we have somebody on board, it could be a few months, 4 to 6 months, maybe longest to get that.
Okay.
But if it's very well defined and we're just looking at specific things, looking at what the infrastructure costs, And just basically, because Metro did do some preliminary analysis as part of the 2024 urban growth report, we need to validate those assumptions and that's what they did and see if it was is really reasonable. And so I think it's principally looking at the infrastructure costs and being able to meet the Metro Code requirements for, is it even feasible to produce a range of housing types in this area? That could be looked at pretty. That could be looked at pretty easily.
I think the infrastructure costs, but also how those costs get paid. As Dan mentioned, as this was initially kind of thought of, that a lot of these areas, sort of north of David Hill Road, towards Council Creek, a lot of those might kind of help offset the costs of the infrastructure that goes up the hill, and that's not going to happen. And so the potential extra system development charges, or however you decide to pay for it, could have pretty large impact either on the prices of those houses specifically up there, or how that cost gets spread around, maybe not in that geographic area, but to other ratepayers. And that's another huge issue for you all to consider. And so, again, this feasibility analysis might look at some of those things. Might not cover all of that, but have a sort of general idea of how that might look.
Thank you.
Councillor Schimmel.
I would also lean heavy on number one. I assume it's number one because that's your favorite.
Not intentional, no.
Well, I mean, with what you just shared, it seems obvious that land doesn't conform with the outcomes. I mean, but that's apparent to me. I don't know if it's apparent to someone looking at the same map at their desk, or what additional information they need that can inform the rest of the process, or limit the amount of hours and money spent on something that we absolutely know is impractical. And so we need the other 2014 plans to be back at the table to evaluate as well in parallel. Would that be part of number one? Is to relook at those other two areas that were taken from you before?
I don't think that would be part of the scope of work, is to look at the other two areas. That wouldn't be probably, well, I've said it wouldn't be part of the scope of work. I think that, I don't want to correct you with what you said. I think that sort of the way I see it a little bit more is, we don't know if it's feasible or not. On its face, it appears difficult. But we're not developers, and we don't know for sure. So we need to get an idea of what the costs and opportunities of development up there are vis-a-vis what the product we would get out of it would be. You think I'm putting that fairly, Dan?
Yeah.
That's fair. But I was just building on the 60% was not developable.
Right. Yeah.
That, and the rest were scattered. So does that disqualify those scattered sites if it's difficult it's impractical to get all of the utility to all these scattered properties out in the woods, plus the fire piece?
Yeah.
Those are definitely considerations, and the topography. I mean, it's one thing to take a look at things at a very high level, but when you get into the details about the slope and the topography, I mean, even down to street grade and things like that, that we need to take it the next step and drill down a little bit further. And then when Metro looked at this area, they ranked urban reserve areas as either having low potential, medium potential, or high potential across different factors related to utilities, water services, sanitary sewer, storm drainage, and transportation. Metro rated storm drainage and transportation as being low, and that's because of the amount of investment that we require to put in those improvements. Sanitary sewer and water service were rated as medium, but with respect to water service in particular, there's the need for an additional water reservoir, which really wasn't considered as part of the Metro analysis, which increased the cost significantly. It's looking at some of those other issues, infrastructure needs, and making sure that they're actually being considered when these areas are being evaluated.
So I've heard a few people say option one, and I'm option what I hear. It's a thumbs up on that. Okay, yes. I think that's the next step we would like, the feasibility analysis. I mean, we're going to do 4. We're going to continue to move forward with 4 anyway, right? So 1 and 4. Correct? Okay. Do you have what you need from us?
Sure do. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I'm going to adjourn this work
so
session. We're only 5 minutes late. Good job, gentlemen. Good job, council. Thank you. Is this mine?
I thought we were going to be.
Jesse, Mariah, you good? Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council. The time is 7:25. Sorry for the late starts. Will our city recorder please call roll?
Councillor Gustafson? Here. Council President Valenzuela?
Here.
Councillor Schimmel?
Here.
Councillor Falconer?
Here.
Councillor Martinez?
Here.
Councillor Marshall?
Here.
Mayor Wenzel?
Here, Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the audience and council please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. You may be seated. I did get some readers over the weekend, but I forgot them at home because I'm not used to having them. Yeah, I was like, one thing at a time, right? Okay, our first proclamation this evening, hopefully I'm going in the right order, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender identities, socioeconomic levels, religions, and abilities, but it has a disproportionate effect on marginalized communities. And whereas domestic violence includes physical, emotional, social, sexual, spiritual, financial, and digital abuse, and can occur between family members, intimate partners, and within dating relationships. And whereas domestic violence impacts vulnerable victims, including children, as approximately 50% of child abuse victims in Washington County also live in homes with domestic violence. And these experiences in childhood increase the likelihood of struggles with addiction, mental health, school, and other challenges. And whereas Oregon sees higher rates of violence and abuse than the national average, with 42% of women and 39% of men experiencing domestic violence. And whereas Washington County has united to address the impacts of all forms of family violence, including domestic violence, sexual assaults, and child abuse, through our Family Justice Collaborative. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides a platform to show support for the domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline staff, and victim service organizations. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim the month of October 2025 as Domestic Violence Prevention Month in Forest Grove, Oregon, and calls upon the people to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to the victims. Thank you. Hang on.
All right. Thank you. Considerando que la violencia doméstica es un delito grave que afecta a personas de todas las razas, edades, identidades de género, niveles socioeconómicos, religiones y capacidades, pero tiene un efecto desproporcionado en las comunidades marginadas. Y considerando que la violencia doméstica incluye abuso físico, emocional, social, sexual, espiritual, financiero y digital, y puede ocurrir entre miembros de la familia, parejas íntimas y dentro de las relaciones de noviazgo. Y considerando que la violencia doméstica afecta a víctimas vulnerables, incluyendo niños, debido a que aproximadamente el 50% de las víctimas de abuso infantil en el condado de Washington también viven en hogares con violencia doméstica. Y estas experiencias en la infancia aumentan la probabilidad de caer en la adicción, la salud mental, la escuela y otros desafíos. Considerando que en Oregón se observan tasas más altas de violencia y abuso que el promedio nacional, con el 42% de las mujeres y el 39% de los hombres experimentando violencia doméstica. Y considerando que el condado de Washington se ha unido para abordar el impacto de todas las formas de violencia familiar, incluida la violencia doméstica, la agresión sexual y el abuso infantil, a través de nuestro Family Justice Collaborative, y considerando que el mes de concientización sobre la violencia doméstica brinda una plataforma para mostrar apoyo a los defensores de la violencia doméstica. El personal de la línea directa de crisis, las organizaciones de servicios para víctimas y los fiscales y los agentes del orden público que responsabilizan a los infractores. Ahora, por lo tanto, el Ayuntamiento de la ciudad de Forest Grove, por la presente, proclama el mes de octubre de 2025 como mes de la concientización sobre la violencia doméstica en Forest Grove, Oregón, y llama a la gente a aprender más sobre cómo prevenir la violencia doméstica y a mostrar su apoyo a las organizaciones y personas que brindan defensa, recursos, esperanza y asistencia crucial a las víctimas. Go ahead.
Okay. The 250th birthday of the United States Navy and Marine Corps. Whereas the United States Navy was first established on October 13th, 1775, and when the Second Continental Congress passed a resolution creating the Continental Navy, and whereas the United States Marine Corps was established by the Second Continental Congress on November 10th, 1775, and whereas the first unit of the Marine Corps was formed shortly thereafter, when Captain Samuel Nicholas recruited members and carried out the Marine Corps' first amphibious operation, seizing much needed gunpowder from the British for the Continental Army. And whereas the U.S. Marine Corps has served in nearly every conflict in the United States history, and by 1943, the United States Navy had become the largest Navy in the world. And whereas Navy and Marine Corps veterans and their family are an integral part of our community. And whereas it is most fitting for the community to pause and reflect on the rich history, unwavering dedication, and innumerable sacrifices of members of the Navy and Marine Corps in their undaunted and immeasurable service to our nation. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim the October 13th, 2025 as the 250th birthday of the United States Navy and Marine Corps in Forest Grove, Oregon, and calls upon the people to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. Thank you.
Thank you. Proclamación. Considerando que la Marina de los Estados Unidos fue establecida por primera vez el 13 de octubre de 1775, cuando el Segundo Congreso Continental aprobó una resolución creando la Marina Continental, y considerando que el Cuerpo de Marines de los Estados Unidos fue establecido por el Segundo Congreso Continental el 10 de noviembre de 1775, y considerando que la primera unidad del Cuerpo de Marines se formó poco después, cuando el capitán Samuel Nicolás reclutó miembros y llevó a cabo la primera operación anfibia del Cuerpo de Marines, al apoderarse de la pólvora necesaria de los británicos para el ejército continental. Considerando que el Cuerpo de Marines de los Estados Unidos ha participado en casi todos los conflictos de la historia del país y que para 1943 la Marina de los Estados Unidos se había convertido en la más grande del mundo, y considerando que los veteranos de la Marina y del Cuerpo de Marines, así como sus familias, son una parte integral de nuestra comunidad. Considerando que es sumamente apropiado que nuestra comunidad se detenga a reflexionar sobre la rica historia, la inquebrantable dedicación y los innumerables sacrificios de los miembros de la Marina y del Cuerpo de Marines en su valiente e invaluable servicio a nuestra comunidad. Ahora, por tanto, el Ayuntamiento de la ciudad de Forest Grove proclama por la presente el 13 de octubre de 2025 como el 250 aniversario de la Marina y del Cuerpo de Marines de los Estados Unidos. En Forest Grove, Oregon, hace un llamado a la población para unirse a sus conciudadanos en todo Estados Unidos en el reconocimiento y la participación en esta conmemoración especial. Thank you for your service.
You can take it to them too.
Sí, thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to item B on our agenda, which is public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of the councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand feature to be called on. Okay, so our first public comment is Abigail Slama Katran. Hopefully I did not butcher your last name.
Hello.
Hi, Abigail.
Hi. My name is Abigail Slamakatrin. I work at the Center of Sustainability on Pacific University's campus, and I'm in charge of the public transportation.
Hi, I'm Leilani. I am also a student at Pacific. I am a Civic Action Team Specialist at our McCall Center for Civic Engagement.
We recently learned that the GroveLink shuttle that services both the east and west side of Forest Grove is on the line for budget cuts, coming up in the 2028 budget cuts by TriMet. So we thought it was important to bring this attention to you guys as our city council, as Forest Grove services many people, the Forest Grove Link services many people, wide range from any abilities, any races, because it targets both schools, parks, cities, community centers, and obviously Safeway.
We've brought with us flyers today that have a QR code on them. TriMet is, they have a survey that closes on October 31st that's to be taking public comment. It has rank importance on issues, but it also has room for just comments on the issue.
TriMet and Forest Grove Link is under county shuttles on there, and TriMet ordered it where 9 is the most important and 1 is the least important. So we strongly urge you guys to vote 9 for county shuttles because that's what Grove Link is. And the survey closes on October 31st.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dale Feek.
Yeah, Dale Feek, Mayor Wenzel and councilors. May I have 3 minutes instead of 2?
No, not tonight. Sorry, we're running late.
I
Started
understand
late.
that. Behind schedule. I'll talk quickly. On Friday, October the 10th, Speaker of the House, U.S. House, Mike Johnson described this coming Saturday's No Kings rally as Hate America rally. So, are Mike Johnson and the White House worried about, what are they worried about? Why are they trying to discredit the rally before it even occurred? Because it's likely to be even larger than the first No Kings rally, which was the largest demonstration against Trump since his return to the Oval Office. Trump's power depends on maintaining the illusion that he's all-powerful, and the most Americans adore him. But that illusion is harder to maintain if a significant part of the population of every town and city is on the streets decrying him. The emperor has no close. Rather than being a Hate America rally, Saturday, October 18th, rally is an opportunity for all of us who love America to express our determination that our nation's ideals will not be crushed by the Trump regime. It's a chance for us to publicly rededicate ourselves to democracy, the rule of law, equal protection under the law, and our rights to believe what we want, to say what we want, and to choose our leaders without fear of recrimination. That's what Robert Wright said in an email to me and others. So, on the 18th, Hillsborough Shute Park. Some people don't live in Forest Grove. There's a rally from 10 to noon, Shute Park. Beaverton at the library, 2 to 4. And the Forest Grove flagpole from 4:30 to 6:30. My wife and I plan to go to all 3 of them. I encourage you to do at least one.
Thank you, Mr. Fake. Carol Allen. Hello, Carol. Good. How are you? Oh, thank you. So kind.
I love it that it's Domestic Violence Month because I know people who have been under domestic violence. And I know the injustice that has come out of this. We really do not. And it's interesting. You said something that I really thought that we are one of the highest for domestic violence. And this shouldn't be. We have all these programs. Question is, why are the programs not working? So here's something I want to share from the Word of God. Proverbs 10:12 says, hate stirs up conflicts, but love covers all. Wrong. Luke 6 says, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. I think if we had a little bit more of what the Bible says, we might be doing a little bit better for our people who are under this domestic violence. And I just wanted to share that. And I ask God to bless each one of you, give you wisdom. I know you have a hard job. And I pray that he will guide you in all of it. Okay?
Great. Thank you. Mariah, do you mind moving the timer so I can see if there's... Okay, anyone on Zoom like to give public comment, please use the raise hand feature. Okay, seeing none, we are going to now move on to item C on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will all be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining item. What is the wish of the council?
That we remove item 2.
Okay, remove item 2. Okay,
Second.
okay. You have to say all those in favor of removing item 2? Do I have to do that? Like all of it? No, I don't think so, right?
I think an item can be removed without a vote, and then the vote would be for the rest of the consent agenda, not otherwise removed.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the other 2 items, is there a motion for the other 2 items? So moved by Councilor Guston. And seconded by Councilor Marshall. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Consent agenda items 1 and 3 are approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Okay, I'm going to turn over to you, Councilor Martinez, for item 2.
Really quick, who seconded the motion to remove that?
Council President Valenzuela.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Okay, why do you want it removed, or what do you want to talk about?
So I want to talk about I can't say it, Dia de los Muertos. It's the Day of the Dead, is what it is. And my objection to it is that it is, by many, looked at as a religious celebration as well, because they set up altars and they set food on the altars for their deceased loved ones.
Are you asking for us not to award the tourism grant?
Just for that one, correct.
Okay, is there a second to not award that tourism grant?
I'm sorry?
She would like to not award application C2 Dia de
Los Muertos?
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's presenting that as a motion.
Okay.
Does anyone else agree or to second that?
You want to give more background on it?
I would like some background on it. I'm processing.
I can read some information that I've found on it. Plus, I've talked to some Hispanic friends who have the heritage, but this is something that they do not celebrate. So it's let's see, where did my stuff go? Maybe it's in my phone. Sorry. It does have a history of celebrating a deity. So, Day of the Dead is a holiday in Mexico, also observed to a lesser extent in other areas of Latin America and in the United States, honoring dead loved ones and making peace with the eventuality of death by treating it familiarly without fear and dread. The holiday is derived from rituals of pre-Hispanic peoples of Mexico, led by the goddess Micta, and I can't say all that, Huitl, known as the Lady of the Dead. The celebration lasted a month. And so under that, we have made the direction in the past that we do not observe or the religious observances are not part of city speech.
Okay, do you want to second it, or is there a second, or no? I'm not seeing anyone that wants to second it. So,
I'm going to second it.
okay.
I just want to have a conversation as a whole.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it was moved by Councilor Martinez to remove the award sponsorship, and it was seconded by Councilor Gustafson to remove the award. And now there's discussion.
Yeah, I wanted to have discussion. So,
Yeah.
can I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
It's right there before I forget. So I was looking it up, and I mean, Councilor Martinez, you're completely correct. You know, it was based on a deity. At least that's what Google tells us. I wasn't there, but it is also a cultural holiday. So what I want to make sure is that we don't pin ourselves in a corner, because I understand that, and it is city's voice at this point in time. But how do we differentiate between a religious holiday or religious celebration and a cultural celebration? I'm just saying all this to throw it out there for everybody to kind of think through that. Because initially I was like, well, of course we're going to fund it. But, when I sit and think about it and have to think about, the equity of it, what does this say as far as saying yes or no when it's both a cultural holiday to some and a religious holiday for others? Whereas for me, it is both. That's all.
And if I may, Councilor Martinez, in Chile, we do not celebrate Dia de los Muertos.
I'm sorry. Would you
In
they
Chile,
do not celebrate
my
Chile.
native country, we do not celebrate Dia de los Muertos. However, many people here, they don't understand the difference between Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. They're two very separate things. And I don't know what Google says, but for what I understand about this festivity, this celebration, is the celebration of the people who have passed away in that family, the celebration of life. Many times we go to a service, and what do? We celebrate someone's life, right? That's celebration of life. And because this is a very unique culture, they do it in a very colorful way. So it's not like to express less fear for death or no respect for death or anything like that. But it's very close. It's on the 1st and 2nd of November, which are Catholic days to remember.
It's All Saints Day and
It's All
Souls
Saints Day, exactly.
So that's why this is why I wanted to explain more with it, so you guys would understand what she's talking about. Because I could go out and say that I want to do something for All Saints Day or All Souls Day, and it would be similar to what is happening with the Day of the Dead. But I couldn't do it because it's considered a religious holiday, where that is considered a religious holiday as well. So I see where I see what is being said.
Yeah. So, if, exactly, but we also need to, let's think of a carnival, when the conquistadores came and they brought Christianity to the New World, okay? They, in the name of God, they came to the Americas, and, okay, we know some of the history. But like a carnival, it's like merging the two cultures of the Christian religion and the other cultures. So like a carnival is something like that, with dances and costumes and things like that, where people would be fervent, praying to Virgin Mary or Virgen de Guadalupe or wherever it may be, but that was kind of like a compromise in a way, so the natives could also celebrate this and be content about celebrating, Virgen de Guadalupe or another, another virgin from somewhere, because we all have them. They have different names throughout Latin America. So, like I said, it's a celebration of life. And when you make this altar, it's considered, just to put food and celebrate the lives of the people. That's why it has the pictures of those who have passed away, because it is believed they will come back home, stay there for a little bit, visit with the family, and then leave. Okay? And that's why you put the food that they used to eat, that they used to like, things they like to do, because they're supposed to come and visit, and that is a belief they have. Okay? But it is on that day, because, in other countries, they're celebrated in different ways. In Chile, it's a very quiet and solemn day, where all you hear is classical music, because it's a day of mourning, where in Mexico, or here, it's with Mexican-American people, it's a celebration of the life they lived. So that's what I know about Dia de los Muertos.
Councillor
I
Gustafson.
just want to throw another confusing fact in there. Then we're going to start to talk about, too, the pagan celebrations, Halloween. I mean, there's so much of that that's a crossover. So, I mean, I don't mind having this conversation again, because we do want to make sure that when we say city voice, what that really means, so that there can be clarity. I am completely on board with that. How do we differentiate those two to make sure when we're okaying something, it's reflective of the city as a whole? So I totally appreciate you coming about that, because it is something that I would not have thought about. That's all I have.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I do want to say not that I felt offended, but I don't use Google or anything like that for my research. Being a nurse, I do a lot of research, and only certain sites that I will look up.
Yeah.
But yes, my biggest concern was the fact that the altars are built, and then food is put on those altars as an offering to their descendants. So,
Yeah,
and I have to be clear of conscience
to the people of their families
these
that have
things
passed
that are
away,
brought before the council.
but not a deity. The people in their families that have passed away, not a goddess or anything or anyone like that. So and you see how Adelante Mujeres celebrates this day, and they have activities, because it is a cultural celebration also.
Any further discussion? So just to clarify, if you say aye, All those in favor of this motion, you are voting to not sponsor it. You're voting to not sponsor it. You understand?
If you say yes, you mean no.
Pretty much, because the motion is to remove it.
So
Okay.
is this something in the future that we get clarification on if this is considered a religious, because I think that's where we're getting at, is if we open the gate for this, then we have to open the gate for other religious holidays. And that's the thing that I want to know, because and I think that's what Karen is trying to propose with this, is that if it is a day of, if it's a day of religion and we're celebrating it or giving money to it, it goes against what we had said previously about not doing that.
Personally, I think it's two different things, but go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
Well, to me, it's more of a dangerous precedent of false attribution error. You in your own research claim that it's some pagan tradition. That your research doesn't reflect that as fact. In my experience with this this tradition, this culture in the last 4 years, is that it's not, again, associated. No more than, say, Christmas or Halloween. So a Christmas tree is an altar. Presents is an altar. How we translate faith in modern ways is their own altar. I think it's dangerous to suggest that because they call something an altar, it's by nature pagan. I think that's a dangerous precedent to associate a cultural tradition because you don't agree with it, and I don't support your research on it. I mean, we haven't seen the research, obviously, but yeah, I think it's a false attribution error to associate that, and to remove this would be unfortunate, and I think it would probably disqualify many other tourism grants for anything remotely related to holidays.
We're good?
No, I want to respond to that. This is not a reflection on a community of people. As you know, Martinez is my last name, and my husband is of Hispanic Puerto Rican descent. I also have very good friends that are as well, and who have supported my stance that I'm taking this evening. So I am a little offended by that comment, because that is wrong. And actually, I forgive you now, because I will not carry offense, because that's wrong too.
I just have a point of
but
clarification. Oh, when you're done, I have a point of clarification.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't come with these things lightly. And I do my research and make sure that I have grounds for, and I may not always express them verbally well, but I do my research. So anyway, I'm done.
Really quick, and
But
I know
just
you had
really
a statement.
quickly-
No, wait 1 minute.
Okay.
I think, I think we're going off the rails, and it's a little bit. I think the question for me is, well, maybe not, but the question is, under this program of sponsorships, right? My understanding is your question is funding it, saying we're city speech with a certain religious or not. For me personally, if a church, if a religious group came and said they were sponsoring an event that brought tourism to Forest Grove, it to me would fit the qualifications of the sponsorship application, and I would allow it, right? And so that for me, just me, my opinion, like not trying to create, I'm okay with this because I'm going to also be okay with any event that fits within the Constitution that brings tourists to Forest Grove to spend their money, to engage, to have an event. So that's where I'm at. It's not, I'm not a belief system, but a belief that, I think it's like there's 5 freedoms protected under the First Amendment. And that freedom of religion whether you view it as a religious holiday or a cultural tradition, there's capacity for it, just like there's capacity for something else. And then Councillor Guston, what was your clarifying question?
I was wondering if Counselor Schimmel can sum up what it was he said, because I'm sorry, I'm having some problems with my hearing I'm working on, but I didn't catch what you said. Could you just quickly sum it up?
I thought it would be an error to attribute this holiday or this culture event as anything resembling a pagan tradition that we shouldn't support.
If it's I'm sorry.
It would be a mistake to attribute this event as a pagan event.
Oh, I didn't know anybody did.
And Councilor Martinez, I want to apologize. When I said Google, I thought when you read that definition for us, for some reason I thought that's what you had said, that you had found this definition.
It was from
and I didn't mean to
Britannica
demean
Encyclopedia. No, I didn't.
what you were sharing with us or anything like that. You know, I mean, we disagree.
Yeah.
No, in Puerto Rico, they don't celebrate Day of the Dead. They're probably more like Chile, you know, that they go to the cemetery, bring flowers, and it's a quiet day. It's not a celebration of death, but a day of mourning. So,
Okay, I'm going to call, are we done with discussion? I'm going to call for a vote.
Can you clarify again, just the motion is?
The motion is to not fund this application for sponsorship. So if you say aye or yes, you are voting to not fund it. If you say no, you're voting to fund it.
Do we need a follow-up, just for clarification, are we then we're going to need then, depending on which way it goes, we may need another motion?
Well, I think you'll need another motion either way, because there is a second
There's
application.
two applications in item number 2. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote. I'm just would rather clarity.
Councillor Falconer?
No.
Councillor Martinez?
Aye.
Councillor Marshall?
I'm going to abstain.
Councillor Gustafson?
No.
Councillor Valenzuela?
aye.
No.
That means I don't want it. I don't want to not fund it.
No, you wanted to say no.
No.
Councillor Schimmel?
No.
Mayor Wenzel?
No. Okay, can I have a motion about item C2 on the consent agenda?
I move to approve item C2.
Second.
Okay, Councillor Falconer made a motion for item C2, and Councillor Schimmel seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Hearing none, it is passed with a 7-0 vote. The other part of the consent agenda was approved by a 7-0 vote as well. I don't think I ever announced that. Okay, we're now on to item D, additions or deletions. City Manager, additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
Proposed by councilors. Not seeing any. Okay, presentations. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you to your son for waiting. We all have families and understand that, so thank you. So I'm going to bring up our Parks and Rec Director, Ann Lane, and Jill, is it Rossell? Roselle from Alta Planning to talk to us about our Loop Trail update. Again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for our time this evening. Back in 2016, the Forest Grove Loop Trail, then referred to as the Emerald Necklace Trail, was identified in the 2016 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. We were funded a very nice, healthy grant from Metro Trails back in 2022 to fund the cost to do a master plan for this project. We put a little bit of SDC money towards that effort, and in early 2023, the project was awarded to Alta Planning and Design. And tonight, I have Jill here to give you all an update. Thank you.
Okay, so, this map here is showing the full alignment map for the Loop Trail. The green represents existing bike routes and pedestrian paths on sidewalks primarily, and then the dashed blue is the proposed portions to fill the gaps of that loop trail. Go to the next slide. So here you can see the different proposed trail types. So the black line again is bike lanes and sidewalks. The green is going to be proposed separated multi-use path, and the blue is a neighborhood greenway. And so the next slides will show you what these would look like. So just if you can kind of pay attention, again, the black is along the existing route, and green would be a separated multi-use path. Blue is the neighborhood greenway, so that would be sidewalks with some traffic calming measures and bike traffic on the street. So next slide.
Wait, can we go back to that slide?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like the worst. But so Kyle Park, what's the star on 19th? So it goes Kyle Park, and then you have Knox Ridge. So I think the stars are like parks or
Sorry,
neighborhood
yes,
parks.
those are proposed
But
trail
there's-
access points.
Oh, they're just trail access points.
Like a trailhead, yeah. So there was
I
many
could have read.
opportunities.
I could have read the key
No, I should have mentioned
here
that.
by the mayor. Thank you.
So here you can see what the trail might look like going through Kyle Park and beyond there to the west, with the existing neighborhood on one side, and then we are showing some of the planted pollinator meadow and public art and seating off to the side. There's another example. This is where there's an easement to take the trail off of David Hill Road and come through just north of Hartford Drive. It would be a separated path again. And then this would be something like what you might see on David Hill Road. So bike lanes and sidewalk, but still safe routes for both people to walk and bike. And then, as I was describing the neighborhood greenway, one portion of it is on Watercress Road. So this would be pedestrian route would be along the sidewalk, but there would be some traffic calming measures in place along the road to slow drivers down and share the space. And that's what those pavement markings are, sharrows, so that bikes and cars can go along the same route. This here shows the full trail network. So what you're seeing is blue is existing trails throughout the city, and the red would be future trails. So not just the Loop Trail, but it also has the Council Creek Trail, and it also shows some proposed future parking areas, and those are in yellow. So here we have a potential phasing approach. This does not mean that you need to do 1 first, 2 second, and 3 third, but it's just breaking it down into kind of logical ways to think about implementing the trails. So phase 1 from Reuter Farms Park to B Street Trail, much of that alignment is already existing, so that would be a nice option to implement in one go. And then phase 2 is Reuter Farms Park to David Hill Road. That would be partially the separated path and partially the neighborhood greenway, but completing that connection there. And then phase 3 is showing David Hill Road to Highway 47 through that easement that we were thinking about. And then here you can see the breakdown of costs for those 3 phases and the total cost to complete the loop trail. And the implementation plan also includes design guidelines and really goes in depth into each of these different categories that you see here. And there is the trail operations and maintenance framework and some permitting requirements that are also included for guidance. Anything else?
Okay, any questions? Yeah, Councilor Falconer.
I have some question and also some observations and concerns. In our packet, there were a couple things. So in some of the existing conditions that exist on some of the path that's you're showing in your black dashed line because it's existing facility. There are conditions that sort of violate some of the implementation things that we would hope to achieve with the new sections. And so I would just hope that we look at some of that existing trail as well to make sure that they sort of come in line with some of the best practices, including specifically, there are along 47, there's, the trail crosses streets that are approaching or exiting 47 into the neighborhood. So Maple, Oak, Elm, those are the three that I'm most familiar with. But where those conflicts exist, where those intersections are, there is no path crossing the street. There's no marked lanes. Also, the stop signs for the vehicle traffic that is leaving Elm and Maple. The stop sign is way out, actually beyond the trail crossing, and so cars will actually sit in the trail in order to stop for traffic on 47 before they proceed. And so often what that means is people are looking to their left to make sure that they can take a right turn, and they don't see a pedestrian or a bike approaching from their right. So there's at least two of those intersections. And then on sort of a similar, there's a big gap on Highway 47 where of the trail where we propose to go and meet up with David Hill Road with a new trail. However, the existing condition is that when you're riding or walking or running with your dog, you have to actually run on the highway itself in order to connect. And so I'm just hoping that we're looking at those existing conditions to improve them. And then I've got one more thing.
Yeah. So that is actually, as far as the implementation plan goes, providing guidance for bringing up to par the existing trail system as well, and making some of these improvements and allowing for safer conditions throughout. It's
And then can I make one other observation? I noticed on one of the images in the packet is from a project I'm very familiar with, 17th Avenue in Milwaukee in Southeast Portland. And the photo includes recommendation for signage across driveways. And you may know that after that project was complete and jurisdiction was handed over to Milwaukee, all of those stop signs were removed because they required pedestrians to stop for cars when pedestrians are traveling on the path. All of those stop signs have been removed at this point. There were several of them, and what it required was that if you were riding your bike or you were walking, especially when you're riding your bike, you would ride your bike for about 50 feet, and you'd stop at a driveway, and then you would ride your bike 50 more feet and stop at another drive. So I would strongly encourage that we do not include something like that. If it's a requirement, maybe I don't know what our funding is going to look like, but what my understanding is that was a federal requirement for funding. But if we could avoid that, I think we would avoid ripping out stop signs.
So it was a federal requirement, but then the
I
city.
believe it was part of the funding. You probably were you all working on this project?
I did not personally work on the project, but I think the idea is just for like blind turns and where you might not see a driveway entrance, not to have it be like an iterative solution along.
That's what happened.
Okay, any other questions from council? So where are we at with this project, Ann? What's our timeline?
So there's several steps in this process, and we're just completing a big step one, and that's the master plan. We need to really get a better understanding of a few things. One, construction funding, maintenance personnel requirements for bringing something like this into our system, and the route itself. Really taking a much closer look at properties that we're impacting, ownership, etc. So this is the first big step of very many steps to come.
Great, thank you. Okay.
If you can't tell, I'm super excited about it.
No, it is a good project.
My fingers,
Yeah.
I would.
I would welcome walking that entire route, just as Councilor Falconer pointed out. you don't know until you actually experience the conditions of, you know, what you're trying to develop. I'd welcome that opportunity.
Yes, and there are several just nuances along the route that are unique to the space that will have to be given careful consideration when we get to construction document development, and you know, how are we addressing these special individuals.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to item F, public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. And I'm going to call our community development director and our economic development director up. That would be Brian Pohl and Miles Glowacki for ordinance number 2025-03. Hello, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is the second reading consideration for adoption of ordinance number 2025-03. The ordinance was introduced and received its first reading on September 22nd of this year. At the time, Council expressed support for the rate increase and directed staff to proceed with the second reading for adoption. You also see a resolution tonight outlining the funding mechanism for the TLT funded programs for your consideration. And finally, the city is coordinating with Washington County on amending the intergovernmental agreement that enables the county to collect the TLT on the city's behalf. The increase will take effect on January 1st of 2026, allowing time for lodging operators to prepare for implementation, and staff is working on a notification plan for the lodging operators. There have been no changes to the ordinance since the first reading, and staff recommends the City Council adopt ordinance 2025-03. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Miles. Are there any questions since the first reading? Seeing none, what is the wish of the council?
Move to approve ordinance 2025-03.
A second.
Okay. Ordinance 2025-03 was moved by Councilor Marshall and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the city manager read it by title only?
Ordinance 2025-03, amending Forest Grove Code of Ordinances, Title III, Administration, Chapter 34, Taxes and Fees, Section 34.26, Tax Imposed, and Section 34.38, Administration, increasing the local transient lodging tax rate from 2.5% to 3.5%.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, ordinance number 2025-03 is unanimously approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Thank you. We are now moving on to resolution 2025-55, clarifying usage of street light fee, and our city manager is doing this one.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll try to be brief. In 2013, the City Council enacted a $1.50 per month streetlight fee on each utility bill. The fee has remained the same since 2013. That fee was dedicated toward the ownership, operation, maintenance, installation, and replacement of all of the streetlights in the city. There are currently 2,236 streetlights in the city. The project that the city undertook in 2019 and 2020 was to replace all of the actual lights in the streetlights with LED streetlights. So we went from sodium lights to LED lights, and that saved approximately $62,000 per year. Those savings were actually used to finance that project, and we've subsequently, as of 2023, that project has been paid off. So what staff approached the council about, and what there was a work session, and I'm going to refer to my notes here. Whoops. I'll just go off memory. So we had a work session on September 22nd, and the conversation of the work session was about the streetlight fee and also about clarifying the usage of the streetlight fee. And what there was a consensus on in September 22nd meeting was to, one, establish a dedicated replacement account for the streetlight poles and the streetlight fixtures. Currently, there was no replacement account for any of those 2,236 streetlights. It only paid for the operation and maintenance. It did not pay for the replacement of any of the streetlights. So they reached a consensus to have a dedicated replacement fund for those and to use essentially those savings that were created and put it into that dedicated fund over time. That will fund the approximate replacement of the street poles and the streetlight fixtures over about a 75-year life cycle. The other consensus that council reached was to be able to use part of the proceeds from the streetlight fee for those street trees that are within that downtown community development block grant area that have fixtures or electric fixtures for the purpose of putting street tree lights in the street trees, and then also the decorative lighting on the street poles themselves during the holiday season. So with that, the resolution clarifies the usage of the streetlight fee by establishing a dedicated replacement account for the streetlight fixtures, the street poles, and also allowing for the usage of for streetlights associated with the holiday decorating on the street poles and then also the street trees. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Any questions for Jesse?
Yeah, just want to follow up on the Lorax's question from last meeting about the maintenance. What was the consensus from your staff on maintaining the trees, namely the mature trees?
Yeah, so staff, in looking at the past, the city has taken a more active role in the tree maintenance in that community development block grant area as part of the streetscape enhancement project. And so in talking with Greg Robertson, the Public Works Director, we are looking at doing a pruning contract, if you will, for that community development block grant area associated with those street trees. Does that answer your question, Councilor? Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, what is the wish of the council?
I move that we accept resolution 2025, when is this?
Second.
55.
Perfect. Okay, and then any discussion? I mean, I kind of just want to say, I mean, maybe I don't need to say it, but there was an application earlier today from the City Club about holiday decorations and like branding. And the reason like that didn't make it up here is because this was coming and we had consensus for the lights in the downtown holiday decoration. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Just want to put it out there. Okay, any other discussion points? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of resolution 2025-55, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same signal. Hearing none. Resolution 2025-55 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Resolution 2025-56, authorizing I'm not going to read it all. Go ahead, Mariah.
Hi. So this is a resolution for an intergovernmental agreement with the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State created an electronic records management system, which is the system that the city currently uses. This agreement is not actually for our use of the system. They contract with a group for essentially like additional assistance. So they'll help. They'll do trainings. So our staff has done some trainings with them. They help us with structuring. There was recently some changes to the retention schedule, and they went in and updated the system for us. This is there's no cost to the city for this service. It's kind of included in our use of the system. So this is just the Secretary of State made some updates to that agreement, and so they've nullified the last one. And if we want to continue receiving those benefits, then we need to submit an updated one. Open for any questions?
Questions? Did you have no, I thought I saw it at the side of my head. Okay. I don't see any questions, Mariah. Thank you. What is the wish of the council?
So moved.
Okay, I'm going to give it to Councilor Gustafson, and I'm going to second it to Councilor Marshall, if that's cool. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Resolution 2025-56 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. I'm going to call back up Community Development Director Brian Pohl and Economic Development Coordinator Miles Glowacki. But maybe just Miles.
We don't recognize that guy all suited up anyway.
Shots fired.
Good evening,
Go
Mayor and
ahead.
City Council. Resolution 2025-57 is before you tonight. The resolution changes the funding model for the TLT funded programs from a percentage-based model that we had before to a line item budget model. The resolution also creates a fourth program category, 2040 Vision Action Items. During the budget cycle, Council will set the funding for each program. The resolution also stipulates that any revenues over budgeted expenditures will be dedicated to the 2040 Vision Action Program. Are there any questions?
Questions for staff? Seeing none, what is the wish of the council?
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Counselor Schimmel, seconded by Counselor Falconer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2025-57, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution 2025-57 was approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-1. Did you want to discuss before that, and I didn't give you a chance?
I just am back to we need to start thinking about funding Main Street program and looking into that. And that was one of the discussions at our retreat, was when we talked about increasing this, that was something that was brought up.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I didn't see your hand during discussion, if I went too fast.
Oh, no.
Okay, I apologize for that.
You're fine.
Okay, thank you. Is everyone fine with that vote after that? Okay. Number 5, Resolution 2025-58. I don't see Sally's. Who's doing that one, Jesse? Is Sally here and I just don't see her?
9.
I'm doing that one.
Come back up, Jesse. This is about public works funds.
So Resolution 2025-58 essentially makes appropriations for public works. These are what are called miscellaneous projects. So this is not regarding insurance or labor or any of the kind of major budget items or the CIP. It has nothing to do with the capital improvement program. This really has to do with what are called decision packages that come in on a per annum basis to staff. And just to be candid, these were unintentionally left out of the budget process. And so we are coming forward with a budget amendment to essentially add these into the budget. I'll go through these kind of one by one, but I'll try to do it briefly. The appropriations, I'm going to explain the projects, and the appropriations and the funds will follow essentially the projects. But there's one appropriation for $36,250 in the street fund, and that would replace or fund a line laser striper for striping roads and parking lots to replace the existing one. So that's a replacement of that piece of equipment. A radar speed trailer to replace the existing trailer. That's another equipment replacement. 2 additional portable speed signs for a total of 4 portable speed signs to address traffic complaints. And 4 replacement of all radio repeaters that are past their design life. You'll actually see that appropriation in 4 separate areas, and it's split between those 4 funds. So it's split between street, sewer, water, and surface water. So I'm not going to repeat all that 4 times, but it's all 4 of those appropriations are for the radio repeaters. The other couple major appropriations would be the water SDC fund appropriations would increase by $70,000. There's currently a water line that's approximately 400 feet. It's 3-inch PVC. It leaks frequently. It's at the end of U Court. And this project would replace that line with a 6-inch pipe and allow for a fire hydrant in that area. It's also timed to be commensurate with the repaving of U Court next summer. That would be for $70,000. Because it's an expansion from 3-inch to 6-inch, that particular appropriation is SDC eligible. And The other one is a $38,000 appropriation. This is to reimburse the equipment fund to essentially enable Public Works to retain a street sweeper that's currently in the inventory and not sell it. So the $38,000 is the estimated sale value of the existing street sweeper. The reason for Public Works wanting to retain the street sweeper in the fleet and purchase the new street sweeper, which has already been approved, but the retention of this one is not. The reason for the retention is a street sweeper is one of the most common pieces of equipment to break down. It's got a lot of moving parts. It's sweeping things. Oftentimes you can't see what it's sweeping and vacuuming, and so it's out of service a lot. And this would essentially enable us to have a much more manageable and consistent leaf replacement schedule, because if the new one goes out, we'll be able to go and use the replacement one while the new one is being fixed. To do that is add into the equipment fund for the replacement value of $38,000. Again, the new one was already budgeted in the equipment. And then there would be a transfer from street sewer, water, and swim to the equipment fund for a total of $80,000 to purchase what's called a swap loader. Essentially, what this would allow is taking two items that are on the capital improvement replacement schedule and not replacing either of them, and instead combining the functions of those two items into one function, what's called a swap loader. A swap loader is a type of, pretty intuitive what it is. It can do multiple tasks as opposed to having individual trucks that do single tasks. And so this does require an appropriation for a total of $80,000. The current estimated replacement cost is $380,000 for both pieces, and this is $350,000. $270,000 has been accrued in the equipment fund, and this would provide the balance of $80,000 for that. For the purchase of the swap loader, the other two vehicles would still be sold. We would use the replacement value of those to help purchase the swap loader. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that the council may have.
Any questions for Jesse? Seeing none, what is the wish of the council?
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry, I didn't get my question in time.
That's
I
all
was still processing it. I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh no, it's happened already. I know, Jesse, you and I talked about, because you know how I love street sweepers and schedules. And we talked about this $38,000. My only question is, we all know when you let your vehicle sit around, it's not going to start. So is there going to be a routine if we keep that secondary street sweeper? It's going to be turned on and run around the, park for a little while to make sure everything's moving instead of it just sitting there until the other one breaks down?
That's a good question. I can check with Greg Robertson, the Director of Public Works, but we do try to keep all of our equipment in running condition all the time. Even if it's a replacement, we try to make sure that it's ready to go if something does break down, which does require some level of either monthly or every other month maintenance to make sure the batteries are charged, that it's fully fueled, that it'll start. And
fire it up every now and then.
Yeah, all
Okay.
that. So.
That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor.
Let us know if you need any volunteer drivers, or either one of us would.
Oh, I would be right in there.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? What is the wish of the council? You want to redo it? No, but I didn't get the discussion, so.
Okay. I move that we accept 2025 at 56. Is that the one we're on now?
58.
58.
You're good.
Okay.
And then
I lost track.
Council President Valenzuela, you seconded it last time. You want to do that again? Okay, so Resolution 2025-58 was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Council President Valenzuela. Okay, discussion. Any discussion from council? Okay. Making sure. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye. And sorry, I didn't say it. I was like doing too much. And then all those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, Resolution 2025-58 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Our last resolution of the evening is going to be explained to us by our amazing Lighting Power Director, Mr. Keith Horman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As noted in the staff memo, our long-term power purchasing agreement for all preference utilities is expiring on September 30th, 2028. And BPA has now offered the next long-term power purchasing agreement, which will run from October 1st, 2028 through September 30th, 2044. And we'd like to see if you'd approve for the city manager to sign the next long-term purchasing agreement with BPA.
Any questions for staff?
Comment, Keith. Well played at the public safety open house. That was a very popular block of activity with your equipment.
Thank you.
Always. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, what is the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
It was moved by Councilor Falconer and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Any discussion? Seeing none, or hearing none, I guess. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Resolution 2025-59 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Thank you, Keith. Okay, now we're on to item G, which is council communication. We're going to start with Council President Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first thing, I sent an email to you to request your presence at the gathering of the groups from the Library Commission. That will take place on November 9th from 3 to 5:30. It is a Sunday, so I understand it's very difficult to attend on a day, like that, family time and everything. But that is the tradition. That's, when the gathering of the groups happens. And the council is invited, of course, and also the Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation will be present. So, for that, the gathering of the groups. And there have been a lot of improvements at the library, things going on, like the children's place is still, becoming almost ready. It's going to be a lovely place with this wonderful wooden tree where kids can go in there and sit down and read. It's absolutely lovely. And they are also making decisions in terms of some hires that they need to some stuff that they need to support the library. And additional things, we had a resignation in the foundation, a member of the foundation. This foundation is going to be celebrating their 20th anniversary. And, that's a great thing. These are very devoted people that make a lot of things happen at the library. A lot of work, a lot of donations and dedication to bring up good things for the library. The foundation has also approved the funding for the fireplace area. So the furniture has been ordered. Again, that's going to be another lovely place for the community to go and visit at our wonderful library. And that's from the Library Commission.
Who resigned from the foundation?
It was Phil Reuter. As we know, he's a very active community member, so he's doing a lot of things, and it would be understandable, why made that change. For the PAB, we had the meeting last Thursday, right after the State of the County. I don't know if any of you were able to attend the State of the County, but we had our policy advisory meeting right after that. The highlights of the evening was going through the application for the next cycle. There had to be some changes. I have mentioned that to you from time to time. But also, I sent to you via email this afternoon the accomplishments of this board. And I hope you do take a look at it. But these are the accomplishments for years 24, 25. And those are, it has listed all the homeless activities, public services, economic development, housing, how many people and families were assisted and helped, and the funding that was allocated for these different projects, homeless activities, neighborhood and community development, and all those numbers that you can take a look at it. So I thought I would send that to you so you can see it. All right, and that's my report.
Thank you,
this
Council
evening.
President. Next up is Councilor Faulkner.
I have one thing. HLB meeting, I did bring your question about working with the Arts Commission on the downtown receptacles to maybe work with maybe providing historic photos or collaborating on mini murals. They are happy to do so. So I don't know if we have word back from the Arts Commission about whether they would be interested in collaborating as well. But at least from HLB's perspective, they think it's a great.
Councilor Gutson, have you heard from the Arts PAC if they'd be willing to collaborate with HLB on the historical photos on the trash receptacles?
They didn't really expand on anything, but I can't imagine why they wouldn't.
When I talked to some of the members at the mural, at the ribbon cutting for the mural, they seemed on board. So if we could just hook them up together.
Should we, is that, Jesse, is that something that we can just maybe ask Matt and who's the staff for?
It's Colleen. Yeah.
The only mention was the fact that it's paneled instead of flat, which, I mean, you can still make that work, but that was their only comment.
Yeah. And they are kind of inset too, so it could actually probably be, this is me thinking about, it could even be like a changing thing. So like if you actually have inserts that
slide them in.
Okay. Yeah. It'll look really good. Okay, cool. Thanks. And then we're going to go back this way to Councilor Gustafson.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. And then we're going to go back this way. It's like ping pong. We're going to go back this way to Councilor Marshall.
I have nothing to report either.
Okay, then we're going to stay next to him and go to.
we're going to get back on time.
Yeah, we're trying to catch up. Hi, Karen.
So, the Rural Fire Board, actually, there's not always a lot to say about the Rural Fire Board. We ended in record time. They do have a schedule that they're working on for the volunteers because they want them to be cleaning up the Gales Creek Fire Department. So far, I guess it's working. We do have 5 new fire fighters that started last month, last time I heard. And then for the Sister City Committee, we're coming down to the wire with next week. Our students and the few adults that come will be here next week on the 22nd. And they're firming up the last of the events. Looks like the activities are pretty well taken care of.
And for the welcoming on the 22nd, if any, thank you to Council President Valenzuela, who's going to step in for me because I'm previously committed. But any of you, if you're free, can come and welcome the group as they get here. And I think they're scheduled to arrive between 4:30 and 5:15-ish.
That, yeah.
So if you're here,
No,
right?
I'll be here.
That's accurate, but anyone's welcome to do that. Okay, great. Sorry for interrupting. Okay, and then Councilor Schimmel.
Thank you. Well, I want to give an update in relationship to the 2040 vision plan and give a lot of credit to staff, namely Stephanie with the civic engagement group. She's been doing a fantastic job of modernizing our community engagement, making it easier to engage in community through her civic academy, as well as this upcoming open house October 28th. I think those are 2 great examples where we're beginning to modernize how we engage our community and invite them in. So that's been exceptional. And with Miles and the Economic Development Commission for a couple meetings now, he's facilitated some very robust dialogue with an exceptional group of business professionals to get some insights on particular actions. And the most recent one was the tourism RFP, just getting some input from the group in terms of how to craft that RFP for the next cycle. So, I mean, great job with Jesse with coaching staff to really seize onto that 2040 plan and activate it. Thank you.
Okay, and then we're going to move on to Jesse.
So thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for first the time off. It was had a nice week off, but it's great to be back as well. So I did have a couple things to report. The city council sent a letter to the Bonneville Power Administration regarding that power pole on Highway 47 and Fern Hill Maple Road. And that power pole was in part having some impacts on the project schedule and the project construction. I don't have a specific report about exactly when the power pole is going to be moved by BPA, because recall it was owned by the BPA and it have to be moved by the BPA. I did want to report, however, that the letter has had an impact. BPA has assigned a congressional liaison that essentially gives this issue a much higher priority, a level of review and attention. So I think that was a positive step. They also assigned a project manager to this and gave it a project number. So they're looking into a schedule, materials, process. I also want to give a shout out to Keith. Keith has established some really good, Keith Horman, our Light and Power Director, and his team have established some very positive and constructive dialogue with BPA and relationships there that are enabling this issue to get a level of attention that it otherwise would not. And so kudos to Keith and his team for that. Once they have a plan and a schedule, I'll report back to the council with more, but I am happy to report that it's now on their radar, very much so. So, and thank you to the council for enabling that to happen with that letter. Some good news. We did receive, essentially, it's not specifically a grant award, but we were announced an intent to award for the City of Forest Grove. The Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development announced their housing planning assistance grants. We're one of 82 cities that received a grant. They didn't tell us how much, but they did tell us the consultancy that we would be using, and so we'll see how much funds may follow. But that's a very good first step in terms of looking at a housing capacity analysis. Is that housing planning assistance grant? And then the last thing to report on is the city, and I know the council has talked about a couple different traffic areas in the city that needed to be looked at further. One was Main Street and 21st, and specifically, could staff take a look at a four-way stop? The other one was B Street and 19th in that north-south direction, and then turning east. And so we hired Kittleson Associates to do what's called a warrants analysis. And a warrants analysis is a very kind of data-driven analytical approach to pedestrian crossings, speeds, number of vehicles, sight distances, all kinds of things. And to make a long story short, they are, and the Traffic Control Review Board reviewed their report, and the TCRB is recommending a four-way stop at Main and 21st Avenue. So that's the first one. And then they're also recommending some additional signage on B Street and 19th to try and clarify the turning directions for the vehicles going south and also the vehicles going north that intend to go east onto 19th. So expect some communications, some advanced communications about what some of these traffic changes may be, but also expect those to be implemented probably within the next 6 months or so. I'm trying to do as much advanced notification as possible to assure that that there's some that the public knows that these things may be coming. So with that, Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so on September 29th, so one of the groups that I'm part of is the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, and the group of us, all of us mayors, signed on to a joint statement denouncing the militarization of the city of Portland. I just want to on the public record state that I like a lot of things, and I feel very, very grateful to get to be the mayor of a community that I love and a country I love and a constitution I love. One of the things I love about being the mayor is that it's nonpartisan. So there were some accusations of signing because of one political party or not, and I just want to affirm that I'm a nonpartisan mayor. I served the city of Forest Grove in a nonpartisan capacity, and it was a very easy decision for me to sign on to that statement because I took an oath 3 times now. That oath was to protect the Constitution, and local jurisdiction, local police are in charge of our cities, and it's very, very dangerous to use military in that capacity. So anyways, there was, I want to say 13 of us who signed on to that letter. A few of us spoke at a press conference. That happened on the 29th. So that was that was the 29th. On the 30th, I had my first Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee meeting. We utilized an opportunity with Washington County Commissioner Pam Treese, and that was fun. On October 5th, I went and did the pre-town hall meeting with Congresswoman Bonamici for local electeds. That was Sunday, October 5th. I forgot that on Lincoln on the 1st, I think Councilor Schimmel was there and Councilor Martinez. We did the mural ribbon cutting, and that was really cool. That was awarded through some of the TLT funds to Public Arts Commission, and they just do a really good job of the whole process, the RFP, the vision, getting it completed. Transportation, state transportation. So I attended the Region 1 area transportation meeting on October 6th and the Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting today. This transportation funding, I thought on October 6th, I thought there was going to be a temporary plan, right, for some modest increase, like basically a Band-Aid to get us through some transportation funding. But then a comment was made, and I don't know if it was made at the Washington County Chairs meeting or WCCC, that now there's word that it might go to a vote. I don't know if anyone else has heard that. This has been a really long day for me. So I will come back with transportation. But one of the really cool things in the Region 1 meeting about transportation that I thought was really cool, similar to our Grove Lake system, which Abigail and Leilani talked about how good it is for the Grove. They also are looking for other gaps in transportation. So they're thinking of doing this. Where did I write it down at? The micro mobility. Oh, it's micro transit. Okay, so it's micro transit, and they're going to do a pilot program in the Progress Ridge area. But basically, they have shuttle buses that are 8-passenger buses, and they're trying to connect people in that new Progress Ridge area. What's the high school? Is it Westview? No. Yeah. Is it Westview, that new high school? Yeah, so Westview High School, Progress Ridge, Washington Square. And so it's almost like an Uber, but it's for public transportation. It's a pilot program. It's funded for the longevity of it. This is a grant, STIF program, transit tax increase. It will be funded. Yeah, so, there's this funding thing, but right now they have funding to do it. It's called SPOT. It's Shared Public On-Demand Transit. That's their brand. And it's going to launch January 5th, and the pilot will go through April of 2027. So if it works, right, this kind of hits those gaps in public transportation. And honestly, one of the things, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but one of the things we have to look at with public transportation is being able to fund it, right, and meet the needs. And so sometimes smaller vehicles, GroveLink is really successful. We only have one bus line, and it's not always successful to use TriMet, but to get around Forest Grove, GroveLink is really successful. And so this is just another pilot program that they're trying that I thought sounded really cool. So talking about TriMet, they're having budget shortfalls. We've had an increase of 53% since 2019. They have not recovered since COVID. There's a $300 million gap between their annual expenses and their revenue. So they're going to look at some service cuts starting November 30th. And that's kind of the survey, the TriMet survey that the Pacific students were talking about as well. So the line, we only have bus 57, so they're not going to cut that. But there's a 185th stop. But basically, right now they're cutting service after hours. So again, this pretty much targets anyone that's like has a lower income or has to work nighttime jobs, because now the bus on certain lines will only run once an hour. Oh, if you could make it, because I cannot make it, it used to be called the CAT, the Center for Addiction Triage and Treatment. Now it's called the Beaverton Recovery Center. That ribbon cutting's going to be at 10:30. How did I not write down the date? Oh my goodness. I should know this date. It's on the 24th. I have a good memory sometimes. It's Friday, October 24th at 10:30 a.m. That's right off 185th in the old WACA building. So some of us toured it when they first bought it, but now you get to see the inside. Okay, I'm going to stop so we get back on track. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council, but we do have a work session immediately following, but we'll take a short bio break. Okay, meeting adjourned. Where do you want to have the work session at? Just up here?